Thanks to everybody who joined us today on the webinar. Mine's Sarah Lee, and I am the Fulbright. Um, I don't even know what my Fulbright title is anymore. I haven't had a chance to do much of it because it's new. So I'm the Fulbright liaison for Ball State University, and I'm here to roll out the new year of Fulbright. Technically, I think it was supposed to start tomorrow, but they went ahead and sent stuff today that says that it has started and is open. And so there's a link to the main page for Fulbright for the awards for this year. And I'm also going to send a link to all their other webinars that they will be having in the chat. So you guys will have access to those for your future Fulbright needs. But today, I'm very pleased that Michael Famiano, a professor of physics at Western Michigan University, has offered to visit with us as his role as a Fulbright ambassador to share his experiences that he's had as faculty scholar when he was in Japan, as well as answer just any kind of general questions people would have. Mike said that he's okay with people just jumping in and asking questions because he gets bored of hearing himself, I guess. And so if you guys have questions, join in. We are recording this, so it'll be available if you want to share it with your folks later. We can do that too. And so did I not send the links to everybody? Okay, sorry. See, I'm not good at this. So yeah, so I will resend links. All right, go ahead, Mike, thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot, Sarah. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. You should be able to see a screen with my title slide here. Let me know if you don't. So I'm currently a Fulbright ambassador. I'll talk about what that means in a minute. So here's sort of a little bit of information about me. I'm currently at Western Michigan University. I'm a professor of physics. I'm also the currently the chair of the physics department. If you are thinking about being the chair of your department, my recommendation to you is don't. It is just a miserable, thankless job. I used to write papers. I used to do awesome research. Now all I do is listen to complaints and everyone hates me. Fulbright ambassador is kind of a fun job. This is actually the highlight of my week right now. Used to be currently a Fulbright scholar. They say once you are a Fulbrighter, you are always a Fulbrighter. What they do is the Fulbright organization, IIE, the International Education Organization, picks about a dozen people every year out of all the former current Fulbrighters to sort of represent, sort of be the face of Fulbright. And what we do is we get to do what I'm doing right now. We get to talk about our Fulbright experience. Huge amount of fun. I mean, which faculty member doesn't like talking about themselves and talking about their work? Absolutely love it. Of course, pre-COVID, we were traveling. In the next couple months, we'll get to travel again. And of course, you can't be a Fulbright scholar without liking to travel. And so really enjoyable work, really an enjoyable position. If you're thinking of a Fulbright, my recommendation is just to go for it. Again, as Sarah said, by all means, interrupt me at any time. I'm a very boring person, and it's much better if you talk. I'm much more interested in hearing what everyone else has to say and what your plans are for the Fulbright and for the future. So I'm going to talk about why I applied for Fulbright, how I approached the application, what I did, impact. Really interesting in the sciences to do a Fulbright. And the reason is if you're in the sciences, you're probably pretty well funded. You probably have projects planned out for at least the next 3 years, if not longer. And so the question is, how does that Fulbright sort of fit into what you are currently doing? Picture on the right-hand side gives you a little bit of a background. I was a Fulbright scholar, faculty scholar to Japan. This is a photograph on January 2nd. I arrived in Japan on January 2nd, left my home here in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Yes, there really is a Kalamazoo on January 1st. And this is a picture outside of my office. There's Mount Fuji in the background there. Just wonderful to wake up to that every day in the wintertime. Of course, in the summertime, Japan is humid. You can't see it. A little bit about myself there. Currently the professor, chair of physics, I already mentioned that. I was a visiting professor to the National Astronomical Observatory of Japan, which is just outside of Tokyo. If you're familiar with Tokyo, you take the Chuo line 34 minutes west. Everyone in Tokyo talks about geography in terms of which train line you're near. And so that was just outside. It was still in the Tokyo prefecture. I'm also a visiting professor at Beihang University and a visiting professor at the University of Catania, which is on the island of Sicily. Sicily Catania specifically is really where I want to die. In fact, I don't even care if I die there. I just, when I die, I want you to throw my body in the streets of Catania and my soul will be happy, regardless of whatever afterlife you may subscribe to. I had my Fulbright scholarship in 2019. And my topic was about the astronomical effects of high temperature and high density plasmas. Very, very practical topic, very relevant. People ask me, what purpose does my research serve? I say, well, it feeds the hungry children of the world, specifically my own. Kind of an unusual topic for this award. And the reason it was unusual is because when you search for a Fulbright award, you will go to their website and you will see, you could select which country you want to go to, for example, which region you want to go to. And these are things that Sarah will specifically help you with. And they will say which types of awards they are looking for. So they might be looking for humanities, they might be looking for arts. When I applied to a Fulbright in Japan, I submitted my application in 2017. Note that my Fulbright was in 2019. That kind of gives you an idea of the timeline of the application process. They said, well, you know what, we're really looking for social scientists. We're not really looking for natural scientists or physical scientists. And people told me, look, you can submit, but the odds of getting it are probably pretty low. And so as a physicist, applying to a country which was looking for social scientists, I was expecting not to get accepted at all. Low odds does not mean zero odds. And so I was quite pleased that I got accepted. Again, it sort of was a gamble, but since I have a long history of research with my colleague there, it seemed like things really worked out. Why I chose to apply? I actually had a long history with the National Astronomical Observatory of Japan. And some people think that, well, if you're going to go on a Fulbright, you need to pick a new country, new topic. Not necessarily true. It's great. It's cool if you can do that. But this was an opportunity to expand my current research. We came up with this new idea with my colleagues who were at the National Astronomical Observatory. What was a great resource. My colleagues are basically some of the best astrophysicists on the planet. And of course, I also applied based on the encouragement of my colleagues there. Just a little bit of history. You can see some pictures down there of sort of some of the things the National Astronomical Observatory is involved with. Left-hand side is the Subaru telescope that's in Hawaii. A lot of astronomers put some of the world's best telescopes in Hawaii because when you're surrounded by an ocean, the atmosphere is pretty calm. There are high altitudes there, and quite frankly, it's a great vacation spot. There's also they have a supercomputer at this facility, And they do a lot of fantastic theoretical astrophysics, which is what my concentration was in. Now, when you're submitting a Fulbright application, this was the part that I struggled with. Not that it was a long process. I mean, I knew full well it was a long process. But if you're a scientist, especially if you're in the STEM disciplines, when we write proposals, we are writing proposals for other scientists. So take a look at the right-hand side of the slide here, sort of an excerpt, if you will, from a National Science Foundation proposal. There, you got the project overview, the objectives, and then I talk about astrophysical plasmas, and then I get right into the science. Just dig right into that science and talk about all kinds of cool jargon that other scientists, even though they may not be in my field, may understand. When you write for a Fulbright, that may not necessarily be true. And so you really have to be mindful of your audience. And so what's on the right-hand side there in the foreground is sort of a sample, an excerpt from a National Science Foundation proposal. In the back there is an excerpt from my Fulbright proposal. And of course, you can see I start off with this really, compelling, this is sort of, Carl Sagan, something that people think might sound really cool, but quite frankly has little scientific value. And let me not, let me not detract from the value of the Fulbright application, but take a look at the lower right corner here. Oops, take a look at the lower right corner here. They're really saying, do be mindful of the audience. And as Sarah can tell you, the way the Fulbright application works is you have a local a group of reviewers. And so these are people in the United States that might look at your application. And these could be any scientist anywhere. I've reviewed Fulbright applications. And if they like it, if they like your proposal, then it gets sent to the Fulbright office in the country to which you are applying. And so I applied for a Fulbright research project to Japan. It got reviewed by American scientists. They thought, oh, this is kind of neat. Yeah, send it on. It got sent on to the Fulbright office in Tokyo, Japan. And then they actually looked at it and sent it out to local scientists and local reviewers there. So it goes through multiple rounds of application. So it is a pretty rigorous process. That being said, throughout the entire process, the people who review your application certainly are not going to be in the same specialization that you're in, and may not even be in the same field that you're in. And the reason is because they're not just looking for contributions to your field, they're looking for contributions to the culture. The Fulbright program was set up so that it could facilitate cultural exchange between experts in various disciplines. Take advantage of the many resources available. Here at Western Michigan University, I am very, very, very fortunate to have oh gosh, I don't know what her title is, but she basically represents Fulbright to the Midwest or at least Michigan or something. And she's based here. Her name is Michelle Metro Rowland. Sarah, you may know her. You probably bumped into her at one point or another. I talked to her extensively. I submitted my Fulbright application to her first so she could proofread it. She got back to me 5 minutes later and said, no, this is garbage. You need to redo this. And then we went through 8 rounds of editing. She was very, very patient. Former applicants are also very helpful. I read the applications from other applicants who succeeded. Other people have asked me if they could look at my application. I'm happy to share it with you. There's nothing proprietary in there. It's old news by now. We've already published the work. So by all means, I'm more than happy to share my application with you. I'm happy to have a look at your application. I asked a lot of questions. This point down here, try to form networks before and during the application process. And the reason that's important is because for a Fulbright, you do need an invitation letter. You need an invitation letter from your host country, from the person you plan on working with in your host country. So if you have, for example, international collaborators, that actually might help. They can write an invitation letter. That's not to say that cold calling other collaborators or potential collaborators doesn't work. A lot of people do that. But you know, whatever you can do to form those networks, and it could be a network that someone you meet at a conference, someone you interact with via email, maybe you read someone's paper. The nice thing about Fulbright is that it does not cost your international collaborator anything. And so you could, in principle, go there and do absolutely nothing. Of course, you know, we're scholars. We never want to sit around and do nothing, right? But you could, in principle, go there and do nothing, and your international collaborator won't care. It will not affect them because it doesn't cost them. Also, I knew what my disadvantages are. My disadvantages are, as a physical scientist, I tend to get overly excited about, guess what, science. In fact, one of the biggest complaints I got in my student evaluations last year from my classes was, oh, he gets all caught up in the physics. Well, really, this is a physics class. Of course I get all caught up in the physics. Do be sure to have a lay person, maybe someone in another department, read your application, because that's really where your evaluations will take place. I mean, your Fulbright evaluators will read the application. There won't be a chance for them to interview you. There won't be a chance for them to meet you. So it's all written. Whatever you write down is what's going to be seen here. Okay, so what did I do on my Fulbright? It was a lot of scientific exchange. You know, I did a lot of, you know, plasma physics, astrophysics, and computational physics. Upper right-hand corner here is a picture of me and my Fulbright host. Of course, you know, as an American in Japan, I was always underdressed, right? And, you know, the Japanese tend to adopt a more formal attitude. They didn't seem to mind when I showed up in blue jeans. Well, he's an American. If you're familiar with Japanese, the term is gaijin, which means person from another country. The connotation, that's the dictionary definition. The connotation is hairy barbarian. They were perfectly okay with that. That's sort of what they expected. But there was also a lot of cultural exchange. I really bought into the use of the Fulbright as a way to exchange cultures, you know, American and Japanese cultures. I got to meet other Fulbrighters, which was amazing. I mean, I met people who did all kinds of things. I met someone who you know, did juggling, of all things. I got a Fulbright for that, which I thought was quite interesting. I met artists, entomologists, biologists, all sorts of people in all sorts of disciplines. Got to tour the country. I gave talks all over the place. Also did a lot of outreach activities. Here's a picture of a public lecture that I gave in a tavern, of all places. They had the science cafe there where people could go and buy drinks and buy food and listen to a public lecture from a scientist. Was really, that was actually really memorable. It was really a lot of fun. I've got a book out right now on the market about it. Formation of molecules in stellar environments. Don't buy it on Amazon. It's immensely overpriced. It's a bunch of swill. There's no reason you want to read this book. Terrible book. But you know, I brought several copies with me, and people would I just gave them away, and it was a way to interact with the society there. And of course, I went to multiple conferences and you know, gave several actual technical talks as well. Great way to sort of share my science with people. Another memorable thing that I did was visited local high schools, sort of shared with them some of the things that I did, talked to them. This was a local high school that put on a space conference. And they invited me out, and I gave a talk about my work. I got to interact with them. Actually developed a relationship with these people. They invited me back the year after my Fulbright to attend and talk with them. So that was a lot of fun. One big question I get all the time is, can a Fulbright fit in with federal funding? So let's say you have an NSF grant or a DOE grant or NIH, any grant. And the answer is generally yes. What I would encourage you to do is, if you have federal funding and you are interested in a Fulbright, do be sure to talk to your program manager. One thing I've found about program managers is, more than universities, that they generally trust you to do the right thing with the funding that they give you. It's kind of funny. I don't know how it is at Ball State, but here at Western Michigan, we've got all kinds of rules for how we can spend grant money, and all kinds of rules for how we should and what we need to do with it. And we got to fill out all kinds of paperwork. And then when I call my program manager and ask about this, she always says, look, I don't care. Just do whatever you want with it. Quit wasting my time. Generally, a Fulbright only looks good for everything that you do. And I found that my program manager, who at the time was in the National Science Foundation, was quite open to this. Quite flexible. And of course, as you know, the National Science Foundation can be quite flexible with the timeline of your project. It's very easy to get a one-year extension. So if you wanted to pause your project for a year and go on a Fulbright, that's perfectly fine. Alternatively, if you wanted to continue your project for a year while you were on a Fulbright, I found that the NSF is quite open to that. So do talk to your program manager. I've not talked to anyone who's gotten a Fulbright in the sciences who had a problem with simultaneous federal funding and a Fulbright grant. Sometimes you might want to think about how you spend your Fulbright money and how you spend your federal funding. Keep in mind that the Fulbright provides not only a stipend, it also provides living expenses and research expenses. If you get summer salary, for example, and you're on a Fulbright, generally it's not a problem to take it. Personally, I did not take summer salary from my federal grant on a Fulbright, just because it didn't seem like it was quite kosher to me. But a lot of times they're quite flexible, and the reason is because quite frankly, when you're a scientist or any discipline funded by a federal funding agency, and you get a Fulbright, that really just looks good for them. It also looks good for your university.
Ask a quick question about the cultural exchange part. This is Mary.
Yeah.
So you did these things. I mean, you had some experience in the location where you went to, but did you arrange all these cultural things, or how did you find community partners to sort of do the groundwork?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it was a mix of each. My Fulbright, my host there, he's actually a good friend of mine. I've known this guy since graduate school. Back when I went to grad school in 1776. He was pretty good at promoting things. The other thing is and I think it's culturally dependent. So I will say that in answering your question, I am speaking from someone who did a Fulbright in Japan and not some other country. Japanese communities tend to, or rather, Japan tends to have a very community-focused outlook, and it's almost in everything they do. And so one thing I really tried to do myself was really try to integrate myself into the community. I went there and said, hey, look, I've got a Fulbright. Everything I'm doing is effectively for free, let's just take advantage of it. And so there were a couple times where I would reach out to people and say, hey, I'd love to give a talk at this place. And then there were a couple times where I just got invited. So it was kind of a mix. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that gives me some information. Thank you.
Yep, and depending on which country you go to, it maybe one or the other.
Sure.
So as far as a professional impact, obviously it looks good on a CV. It's good on a resume. Probably, as a scholar, it's a great way to learn a new topic. You can use the Fulbright for any type of topic. You do not have to be an expert in your field to do a Fulbright or rather, you don't have to be an expert on a topic to do a Fulbright on that topic. And of course, you can develop new professional networks, new programs, things like that. A question I get quite a bit is can a Fulbright work with a sabbatical? Honestly, that's probably the best possible situation. If you have a sabbatical coming up, and the reason I say that's the best is don't let my cynical nature rub off on you here, but universities are always thinking about money. And when you go on a sabbatical, they're wondering, where that money is going to go. Well, if you get a Fulbright, it's a free sabbatical for them. And so, and on top of that, it does support you during that time. You get the time off, absolutely. On the other hand, a Fulbright is a great way to quote unquote buy a sabbatical. If you get a Fulbright, your university is going to do what they can to make sure that you go on that Fulbright journey. I've never met any university administrator who said, no, you cannot go on this Fulbright. They said, we need to figure out how what we're going to do while you're gone, how to fill your duties, how to fill your teaching and committee duties, things like that. And that's just something that I would never worry about. And then another question I get is a Fulbright is generally anywhere between 3 months and 1 year. As as faculty, as scholars, you certainly know that 3 months to a year is a tiny amount of time. Some of us, I've got a project that I've been working on for 20 years, and I'm only now starting to get publications from it. Generally, we work in the time frame of say a grant cycle, like 3 years, right? I mean, 3 years is like the shortest amount of time we would think of working on a project for. So can you get a project done in this time? And the answer is, of course, no. However, you can most certainly get a project started in this time. I'm still publishing papers from my Fulbright, and not only that, it led to research that led into additional papers. Right now, I think, let's see, my Fulbright was in 2019. I lost count of the number of papers that I got as a result of my Fulbright. It also leads into preliminary data, for example, if you're looking for a grant. So there are a lot of academically practical applications to research. The Fulbright Commission does not at all expect that you're going to have a book or a paper or a work of art done by the time you get to the end of the Fulbright. What they do expect is that you've represented your country, the United States of America, in another country, and so it's not like they are hammering you over the head saying you need to get something done. You need a quote unquote deliverable. If you've ever had a DOE or an NIH grant, they're big on deliverables. There's this whole checklist of things you need to get done. Fulbright doesn't do that. They expect a final report. I think, I'm digging hard in my memory here. I think my final report was about a page. Okay, I did this, and this. I met with these people, and they were okay with that. A couple pictures of some of the things that I did there. I was touring a lab up in the Fukushima area. Really interesting. So I got to visit Fukushima. The place is still messed up from the 2011 earthquake. By the way, I was in Japan during the 2011 earthquake. It was absolutely terrifying. Every time a truck would drive, I got back, every time a truck would drive by, you know, the building would vibrate and I'd just be terrified. It was just almost like post-traumatic stress disorder. So I finally got over that, but this guy was showing me an electron beam facility. We're thinking of some experiments. Wasn't even expecting to do this, but ended up visiting the place and we came up with ideas. And of course, gave multiple conference talks. There's a lot of conferences. Japan's a small country, which means you can get from one place to the other very easily. In terms of institutional impact, really interesting. Here's the president of Western Michigan University. He actually answers my emails when I send him emails, which I find kind of strange because I'm just a faculty here. I'll send this guy emails. He actually gets back to me on this. I don't know if the Fulbright had anything to do with that, but I can't imagine any university president answering the emails directly. The guy knows who I am. I see him at functions. I actually met him. He came to Japan for a little bit. So that was a lot of fun. It's a great way to tell others about the Fulbright. You develop some really strong connections with university administrators. Now, from a personal standpoint, when I got back from the Fulbright, it was middle of 2019. Shortly thereafter, there was some sort of illness that was going around that a lot of people were getting. Oh, right, COVID-19, yeah. Sort of rattled the world completely. And I'm not sure if I would have done this if I did not go on a Fulbright, but you become much more aware of the, I don't want to say plight, but the challenges faced by those who are traveling internationally. And I became much more aware of the challenges faced by international students. And when COVID-19 hit, I thought, wow, you know, what if I was in Japan when this happened and my entire safety net got yanked out from underneath me? You know, how would I have handled this? And the answer is, I don't know. I don't know how I would have handled this. And so I actually started an organization at Western Michigan University in which we helped students, particularly international students, through some of their financial, food challenges, rental challenges, housing challenges during the COVID pandemic. In fact, this organization is still thriving today. We've got a $250,000 budget this year, and we're doing all sorts of things. The university actually refers students to my organization. We're now a 501c3, a nonprofit organization where we help students with you know, any kind of problems they may have. These include food insecurity, housing insecurity, legal problems, medical problems, bills, things like that. I'm not sure if I would have done this if I didn't do the Fulbright program. And of course, part of it was, you know, I got back and, you know, you become sensitive to these needs, but there's also a part of your brain that says, well, gee whiz, you know, I'm a Fulbrighter. I should be smart enough to figure this out. And of course, you know, I worked with many other people. I worked with our Fulbright, interestingly enough, our Fulbright liaison, who helped organize this, and she's still involved in the organization. Eventually, I ended up turning it over to a board of directors. They still let me attend the meeting. I'm sort of the old man who sits in the back and barks every now and then. But I mean, the thing is almost self-sustaining now. I'm quite pleased with how that turned out. And it was also a great chance to meet the students and make friends with a lot of the students. I got to put this picture in here. This is called the tanuki. It's I guess it's the Japanese equivalent of a raccoon, or you know, what we call the American trash panda. I've never seen one until I went on my Fulbright in Japan, and these actually have a reputation in Japan, which is not too unlike the the reputation of a raccoon in the United States, kind of mischievous, almost a deity level reputation. You know, and I'd been to Japan before many times. Never saw one. I went on my Fulbright. I saw 4 of these guys. So kind of fun, kind of fun. They make statues of these things there. You know, if that's the only thing I got out of my Fulbright, it would have been worth it. Oh, seriously? You saw a trash panda in Japan? That's really, oh, great, good for you. Another question I get is as a scientist, why pick a specific country? This is a really, really good question. Because if you are a scientist, or rather if you are in any discipline, we know, and if there's anything we learned in the past 2 years, we can do our work remotely. I don't need to go to Japan to use their supercomputer there. I don't need to go to Hawaii to use the Subaru telescope. And really what you want to do is you want to keep the broader scope of the Fulbright in mind, and that is cultural exchange. How do you share what you've learned with those in the country? And so that's why I was heavily involved in high school outreach, why I was heavily involved in public talks, things like that. And that's something you really want to keep in mind, because that's a part of your application. Okay, I've talked for a very, very long time here. Just keep in mind, of course, this is being recorded. And so keep in mind the resources available, these websites in particular. Fulbright has a lot of webinars where they can give you tips and tricks. These dates might be incorrect, but they are close. And I think Sarah can probably give you more accurate dates.
Yeah, I think the competition again was supposed to open April 1st, but they're already advertising it, and the 15th deadline, I think, is right. Like,
Okay,
I think that's
good,
the current deadline.
Good. And by the way, you really don't want to wait until September 14th to start your application. It is a long process, especially if you want an application that's successful. I've reviewed plenty of applications for the National Science Foundation. I can tell which ones would wait till 3 days before to write their proposals. The Fulbright proposal is not long. I think it's like 4 pages, or it's less than 10 pages. Those of you who are used to writing, which is everyone here, knows that it's harder to compact your proposal into a few pages than write a 40, 50 page proposal. There are also many institutional opportunities. The Scholar in Residence program allows you to bring someone from another country to your university. This is a fantastic way to do visiting scholar visits. You can bring someone to your university from another country who might be an expert in what you're doing. There's also the Outreach Lecturing Fund. These are short-term stays. It's like a week where someone can come and give out give class lectures, public lectures, and then there's the language teaching assistant. Here's a couple, just sort of a summary slide of the various web presences where you can go. I will say that I gave up my Facebook account, so I don't know what they're doing on Facebook. I couldn't stand Facebook, and everyone there was sort of making me feel envious of their education level. I mean, everyone there has 3-4 PhDs and multiple MDs and things, and I thought, oh my gosh, I can't survive with these people. Again, my cynical nature coming through. Don't let that rub off on you. They got a great Twitter account. LinkedIn is also very, very active. And then there's multiple links. Definitely visit these web pages. You're very welcome to email me as well. I'm more than happy to chat with you. It was really a fun program. It's life-changing. I really enjoyed it. I think it's impacted everything I do for the rest of my life. And I'd be more than happy to chat with you. Super excited about what I did. Okay, that's it. I'm going to stop sharing now and open it up for any. Oh my gosh, there's things in the chat. Holy cow. Oh, good. Lots of cool advice and stuff. But happy to open it up for discussion. And like I said, your best resource is probably Sarah. She really knows this stuff. And thanks a lot for your time.
Yeah, I'll open up the question. This might be a little personal, but did you go by yourself, or did you have a family with you, or?
Oh, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. Fulbright will support your family if they want to go. They don't have to go. So I've got a family. I've got a very tiny Italian family, 3 kids. They will support them if you want. They'll provide resources for local schools, things like that. My Fulbright was 6 months. My family joined me for maybe 1 month in the middle there. So they didn't join the whole time, but they'll do it. I mean, they're very supportive in that respect.
Okay, thanks.
Mike, I have a question. Oh, I was just going to ask, do you know about how many Fulbrighters are from Western Michigan?
Mm.
Do you have like a little group you get together, have coffee,
Oh,
chat about your
yeah,
experience?
yeah, you might have stumped me on that one. Let's see. Of course, you know, I mean, we have students too, right? Ball State has students for sure, right? That might be a question for Michelle. Do you know Michelle? Do you see?
No, I don't. Uh-uh.
Okay. Yeah, I can touch base with you and ask.
That's fine.
Yeah, we there was one point in time where we actually had quite a bit. In fact, I think we led the nation in number of Fulbrights. And
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
yeah, and well, of course, keep in mind that 5 Fulbrights from the university is a lot, right? So we're talking about the statistics of small numbers here. But yeah, so something like that.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions?
I will add, I think, Sarah, when you contact Sarah about it, she will tell you. Each college handles these slightly differently. And by slightly, I mean very. And as I'm looking at the 3 of you attendees, and then obviously our proposal managers, it is different and it takes conversation. So again, not only working on your proposal early and getting in your letters of support, letting those people know you need a letter. Also, we want to engage your chair and potentially dean. Most of the dean's offices are involved in these. As Mike said, he had his upper administration support. And so it is something we want you to feel supported. The university does value these awards and the knowledge that our faculty members bring back. I just put my thing on. But most importantly, we need to make it an arrangement so that way you feel supported and your department can manage without you, with the promise of all of the things you'll bring back to your students and your peers.
Yeah. I stayed in touch with our Fulbright liaison all the time. In fact, it was actually a lot of fun, and now we're actually good friends. I call her probably maybe once every 2 weeks, once a month or so, even just chit chat with her and see how she's doing. Call her up, hey, how you doing? You sound like you've been drinking. Are you all right there? But yeah, it's cool. It's a cool experience, but definitely you want to start early and you want to stay in touch with the people who really know this stuff.
So you hinted at it before, but can we walk through a timeline really quickly? I mean, I'm sure there's on a website somewhere, but
yeah, there is a website, and Sarah, I'm not sure if you know what the website is, but applications are due September.
so if you're applying like in September,
Mhm.
right? Like you turn the application in September, then that would be for a Fulbright to start the following year or following year and a half, or does it depend?
Generally, yeah. Like I said, I submitted my application in September of 2017 and didn't start till January of 19. The start date is very, very flexible. At least it was for me. They said, when do you want to start? And I said, looked at my calendar, talked to my chair, and I said, January 2019, okay? And they said, yeah, no problem.
That was sort of arranged after the award was already made.
Exactly. And you won't even find out that you got the Fulbright. Let's see, I submitted in September. But boy, you know what? It seemed like the application actually moved along pretty quickly after I submitted.
Yeah, Mike, they generally do the announcements in the spring.
Yeah.
And the idea is that you would plan something the next academic year, whether it would be, like Mike said, that you'd start like the spring of then the next.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you
that
do
seems
2 years
about
out.
right. I mean, I remember I got an email, and they keep you informed. I got
Sure.
an email from the U.S. Fulbright Commission saying, "Hey, we liked your application. We submitted it on to the local office in the country you're applying for." And it was there for maybe, it was there for a little while. And then I remember, one morning coming into my office and seeing an email there from the Fulbright Commission in Japan. And I don't know if you do this, but when you apply to something and you get an email back from them, you don't read it immediately because it's going to be a rejection. And so I let it go for like a day while I thought about, how am I going to deal with this? And then read it and said, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. But actually, it wasn't kind of cool. It was a lot cool. So yeah, it's definitely, I wouldn't say it's any longer than like a federal grant application, that's for sure.
Yeah, Mary, and then on the front end with us, as Jackie indicated, you want to start early enough that, you establish obviously where you're going, and then the amount that you get, as far as like Mike talked about how you get
Yeah.
a stipend to go, depends on where you go. It's different by the country. So that then again gets worked into the budget that you do on the Ball State side and get along with all the approvals to be able to have the leave and stuff. So those are things that you just kind of want to be able to establish with your department and your deans early.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out how to I looked at this once right before I moved to Ball State. I was going to do it. And then I moved. So I was trying to line it up with the idea of a sabbatical, right? But I'm just now becoming eligible again since the move. So
yeah, and one thing I did, which was actually, I mean, it was just more serendipity, really, is in terms of teaching assignments. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. I would always ask my chair, look, can I just teach all my classes in one semester? Can I take my whole teaching load one semester and then not do anything the other semester so I can do research and stuff? And sometimes they'll do that. And I've got sort of an unwritten agreement with another faculty member that, I'll teach all my classes in spring and he'll teach all his classes in fall. That way, they get covered. Of course, that semester you're teaching, you feel like you're going to die at the end of the semester. And you're pretty much chained to your desk. Sometimes you can make those arrangements, but once the dean's office finds out you got a Fulbright and the provost's office finds out you got a Fulbright, at least my experience has been, it's that they really want you to do this because it's a feather in the cap of the university. Oh, and also in terms of expenses, yeah, they pay your living expenses. You're not going to get rich on a Fulbright. If you're out to get rich, you're in the wrong profession anyway. I can't believe anyone is here because they want to get rich. But there are ways of making sure that you can make the ends meet while you are there. When I went to the National Astronomical Observatory. They have on-campus dorms that you can stay in. Like 1,300 yen per night. It's $10 a night, $300 a month. You'll never get an apartment in the U.S. that cheaply, and so you can do things like that. A lot of universities, especially international universities, have either faculty dorms or on-campus dorms or guest dorms or something like that at a very reasonable cost. And sometimes you can always work out some sort of arrangement as well.
Anybody have any further questions for Mike? Oh, we haven't. Chan, I saw that you got in late. We did record this, so I can make sure that you get a copy of it.
Sorry, sorry about that. I did not mark on my calendar, but I get an email. Then the people come in, come out. Then I just make sure I respond all my email. I say, hey, that's more important. So I read it, but I just want to confirm it. I think this opportunity is only for U.S. citizens. Then, well, for international, it means they are from other country. I'm not the citizen yet. I'm qualified to apply, but I'm not yet. But at this moment, because I'm working for U.S. university, so this is my home university. So I'm supposed to be a U.S. citizen, then go to another country, right?
Correct, yes. You have to be a U.S. citizen to apply for it.
Well, also, I'm not only learning this for myself. I'm also learning this for other faculty in case they ask me. Yeah.
Great. Well, I'll make sure that you get a copy of the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike, for sharing your experience and answering the questions.
Oh,
We
yeah.
appreciate your time.
Like I said, love talking about myself.
Well,
Yeah, thank you very much.
If you guys need Mike's information, let me know and we'll hook you up. And Mike, I will absolutely be in touch for other questions or things that I have when I come across them.
Yeah, and I'm happy, happy if you want to hand out my email address. I mean, this is the fun part. Like I said, I'm a department chair. This is the fun part of my job. Otherwise, I'm just spending all my evenings looking at spreadsheets and stuff like that.
Being a chair.
Or budgets and other things like that. But yeah, absolutely pass out my email address.
Great.
Be delighted to talk to people about this. It's a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, really.
It sounds like, well, we appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody.
Yep.